In a remote corner of the Siberian taiga, where centuries-old pines and firs reach for the sky, and rivers babble among the stones, on the edge of the forest, there was an old log hut. Ivan Petrovich lived in it, a man of about 50, with a gray beard and kind but tired eyes. Two elderly hunting dogs, Rex and Beria, faithful companions of his lonely life, shared their shelter with him. Ivan was a forester, and his days were spent caring for the taiga. He checked the paths, cleaned up trash left by tourists, and removed poachers' traps to preserve the peace of this majestic forest. Autumn came early in Siberia. The leaves of the cedars and birches turned yellow, and the cold wind was already howling among the trees, covering the paths with a golden carpet. Ivan, as usual, thought that everything was going as usual. He had no idea that an event that would change his life awaited him that night. Towards evening, when twilight fell on the taiga and the cold penetrated to the bones, Ivan sat by the stove, stirring a fragrant stew of potatoes and game in a pot. Suddenly, a low, alarming roar came from the yard. The sound was strange. It mixed anger and pleading, which sent shivers down Ivan's spine. His dogs became alert, pressing their ears back, and whined quietly. The forester sensed something was wrong. He stood up, took a lantern and carefully approached the window, opening the shutters. His heart sank. In the moonlight, he saw a huge she-bear slowly wandering towards his house. Ivan rushed to the door, slammed it, pushed the bolt and grabbed an old hunting rifle that he had not taken out for years. Through the crack in the door he heard the bear growling quietly, but there was no threat in her voice, more like despair. Fear gripped Ivan, and he shouted into the darkness, "Go away," pointing the rifle towards the door. His hands were shaking, and his forehead was covered in sweat. He was afraid that the animal could burst into the house at any moment. But the bear did not leave. She did not try to break down the door or growl threateningly. Instead, she sank down on her front paws, pressing her head to the ground, and let out a long, almost plaintive groan. Her eyes, caught the light of the lantern, glittered, as if begging for something. Ivan froze. His forester's instincts told him that this beast meant no harm. Something in her behavior made him wonder. Maybe she needed help. After some hesitation, Ivan took a deep breath, lowered his gun, and made up his mind. He pulled back the bolt, took the flashlight, put on a warm jacket, grabbed a first aid kit, a rope, and a bag of tools. Opening the door, he pointed the flashlight beam straight into the bear's eye. There was something wild in her gaze, but at the same time full of hope. She growled softly, turned her head toward the forest, then looked at Ivan again, as if inviting him to follow her. Ivan's heart was beating like a drum, but compassion overcame his fear. He nodded to the bear, as if to let her know that he was ready to help. She, as if sensing his determination, slowly moved forward, looking back to make sure that the man was following her. They walked along a path strewn with fallen leaves, deep into the taiga, where the night seemed black as pitch. The cold wind howled, and the rustling of night animals and the creaking of trees made Ivan shudder. But he did not stop. The further they walked, the clearer the plaintive squeak of some animal became. The sound tore through the silence of the taiga like a knife and struck straight into the heart. Finally, in a lowland, where a viscous mud hole had formed after a recent rainstorm, Ivan saw a small bear cub. He was floundering in the mud, exhausted, with paws that barely moved from fatigue. His desperate attempts to get out only pulled him deeper into the quagmire. The she-bear stopped next to him, looked at Ivan, and he saw a plea in her eyes. Without further thought, he tied the rope to a strong pine tree, wrapped it around his waist and began to carefully descend into the hole. The mud was slippery, cold, and every step threatened to cause a fall. The bear cub, sensing a stranger, panicked, trying to scratch, but Ivan spoke to him softly. "Quiet, baby, don't be afraid. I'll pull you out." His voice, calm and warm, seemed to have an effect. The bear cub fell silent. After much effort, sliding and clinging to the rope, Ivan grabbed the bear cub, and straining with all his strength, began to climb. His hands were shaking, his clothes were wet, But he did not give up. When he finally got out on solid ground, the she-bear immediately ran up to her cub. She sniffed him, purred softly, and then turned to Ivan. Her muzzle gently touched his hand, a gesture full of gratitude. The night became even colder, but Ivan, holding the bear cub in his arms, led the she-bear back to his hut. They walked in silence, only the rustling of leaves under their feet disturbing the silence. At home, Ivan placed the cub on an old blanket near the stove to keep him warm. The mother bear lay down next to him, keeping an eye on the cub but not showing any aggression. Her gaze, directed at Ivan, was full of trust. Ivan took smoked fish and a bowl of water from his supplies, placing them in front of the bears. He watched the she-bear carefully eating, and the cub, having grown a little stronger, trying to play with the edge of the blanket. At that moment, Ivan felt warmth in his chest. Just a few hours ago, he was holding a gun, ready to drive away the beast, and now he shared his home with two wild creatures who trusted him. In the morning, when the first rays of the sun broke through the curtains, the cub was already running around the yard, and the she-bear, as if saying goodbye, let out a low growl. She looked at Ivan, as if thanking him, and slowly headed towards the forest. But something told Ivan that this was not their last meeting. And so it happened. The mother bear and her cub began returning to Ivan's hut. Every autumn when the sun set, he named the mother bear Arinka, and the cub Tosh. These names became a symbol of their unusual friendship that was born on that cold Siberian night. Years passed, and the story of the forester Ivan, who followed the mother bear and saved her cub, became a legend in the surrounding villages. It reminded people that even in the wildest taiga there is a place for compassion and trust. And for Ivan, those nights by the stove, when he looked at Arinka and Toshka, became the warmest memories of his life. Thank you for listening to this story. If you liked it, don't forget to support our channel. Like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories about wild nature.